All right, so today we're jumping into something pretty intense. We're looking at a source that makes a really powerful argument that the modern Western idea of marriage is completely broken. And get this, it's not just about fixing it. They say it has to be totally replaced by what they call a strictly biblical structure. We're talking a complete overhaul. So, the big question that kicks this whole thing off is this. And for the people in this source, this isn't just some philosophical thought exercise. They frame it as an urgent, immediate call to action, a radical change they believe is absolutely essential for their survival. Okay, so to really get a handle on their solution, we first have to understand what they see as the problem. And they argue that our modern Western culture, the very air we breathe, really, has become poisonous, especially when it comes to family. And here's where they get really specific. They claim that Western society has systematically taken apart the traditional family. They point to things you might not even think twice about, like how in sports, it's always the player's mama getting the camera time, right? Or how in so many sitcoms, the dad is kind of goofy and incompetent. They see all of this as a kind of psychological warfare designed to elevate women and undermine male leadership in the home. You've heard this a million times, right? Happy wife, happy life. Well, from their perspective, this little phrase is exhibit A for a culture that's totally out of order. They say it teaches men that the main goal is just to keep their wives happy, to maintain peace, instead of following a higher divine structure. And get this, they even take on the whole idea of romance itself. They actually trace the word back to the Romans and argue it's this foreign cultural idea that has no place in their Hebraic heritage. So the whole concept of a man chasing a woman based on passion, they say that builds the entire relationship on a super shaky, flawed foundation right from the start. All right, so if that's the problem, then what's the six? Well, their solution is a full on, complete return to what they call the Hebraic family structure. And the difference in purpose here is like night and day. The Western way, as they see it, is all about romance, passion, finding the one. But in this Hebraic concept, the goal is totally different. It's about building something bigger than yourself. A man's first job is to build a house, to establish himself. Then he takes wives to build a family, a legacy, and ultimately an entire nation. Now, this is where it might get really controversial for a lot of us. They use this specific verse from Isaiah to support their belief in polygyny. And for them, it isn't just something that's allowed. They see it as a prophesied biblical solution for women and a necessary tool for, you guessed it, building their nation. So, inside this restored Hebraic structure, the roles for men and women are super distinct and, yes, very hierarchical. Let's start by breaking down what they say the man's role is supposed to be. The source paints a picture of two very different men. On one side, you have the Western man. They say he's been conditioned to be passive, to be soft, and he's constantly in a power struggle at home with what they call a masculine woman. But the Hebraic man is commanded to conquer, to prepare a place for his family, and to rule his house as the absolute head. This phrase is presented as a kind of litmus test. The speakers basically say that if hearing those words makes you feel uncomfortable or gives you that negative gut reaction, that's the Western mindset in you. And in their view, that mindset is automatically rejecting biblical authority and order. So, it probably comes as no surprise that if there's a prescribed role for men, there's a very specific one for women, too. And it stands in direct opposition to everything they say the modern Western woman is taught to be. So they argue that while the Western woman is pushed to be assertive, independent, even backed by the state's authority, the Hebraic woman's role is to be a chaste keeper at home. Her purpose is to be a helpmeet, to be reverent, and to be subject to her husband. And they're very clear on the why, so that the word of God is not dishonored. And here we go again with the language as a test. They use this example to check your mindset. They argue that your reaction to this, whether you see it as appropriate or totally offensive, reveals your true heart and your level of submission to this prescribed divine order. So you can see how this is all building. And let's be really clear. In their view, this is not just a lifestyle choice. This isn't like picking a diet. For them, this is a decision that has profound, even eternal consequences. As they present it, the choice couldn't be more stark. There are two paths, and that's it. Path A is to follow Western culture. That road, they claim, leads directly to dysfunction, dishonor, and divine judgment. Path B is to restore the Hebraic structure, and that, they argue, is the only road to the restoration of their people, to righteousness and to being in God's favor. And that's really the bottom line here. For these speakers, this is so much bigger than just personal relationships. They believe that getting the family structure right, restoring what they see as the original divine blueprint, is the absolute foundation for their national and spiritual survival. So, we've just walked through a pretty deep and challenging belief system. It's a call to completely turn your back on modern norms and embrace a restored ancient structure. And it raises a huge question, doesn't it? What does this kind of call for radical change really reveal about the powerful intersection of faith, culture, and that deep human search for order in a world that, for many, feels like it's spinning out of control?